Hello everyone! I've had this theory for a while and never noticed anyone mentioning it. I searched as much as I could to make this video, so I hope you like it. I'll begin talking about the mausoleum coffins. As many of you already know, they're the same as the ones found in the Haligtree. Now, the coffin in the Haligtree has a statue that appears to be a female. I always thought this might be Melina, and I still think it might be. With the DLC coming out soon, I wanted to get my theory out there. We'll start with the ghost in front of the Church of Pilgrimage. He says, "The mausoleum prowls, cradling the soulless demigod. O Marica, Queen Eternal, he is your unwanted child." I always thought the word he was a mistake in the translation, and here's why. The Japanese version, according to Google, says the mausoleum is wandering, embracing a soulless demigod. O Queen Marica the Eternal, holding your ugly baby. This sounds hilarious, but the Japanese version doesn't seem to specify the gender of the demigod, and neither do the ashes of Lutel the Headless. The ashes say that Lutel was trying to protect the soulless demigod until the day of their revival. The ashes are found in the tombs or catacombs, where you can see the mausoleum from right outside the cave entrance. You can also see the same mausoleum from outside the Church of Pilgrimage. We hear about this same demigod who is to be revived in Castle Sol from two other ghosts. The ghost in Castle Sol by the medallion says, "Your comrade remains soulless." In the Church of the Eclipse, the ghost says, "Grant life to thee, soulless bones." Neither of them specify the gender of this comrade of Miquella's. The Japanese version of this ghost calls this demigod his friend. The word comrade suggests that they were companions who worked together in the past, and the word friend suggests that they trusted each other.
Hello again, old friend. Allow me a moment to converse with you. You were unable to enter the Erd Tree, no? Prevented by the mantle of barbs. The thorns are impenetrable, a husk of the Erd Tree's being that spurns all that exists without. The only way to stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord is to pass the thorns. My purpose serves to aid in that very act.
Why would Marica hate this specific demigod? Melina was born to become kindling of the Erd Tree. She was born to be sacrificed. I think Marica was still on the side of the greater will when Melina was born. In another of Marica's echoes, Melina says,
in Marica's own words, "I declare mine intent to search the depths of the Golden Order through understanding of the proper way. Our faith, our grace is increased. Those blissful early days of blind belief are long past. My comrades, why must ye falter?"
This was when Marica realized that the greater will was corrupting the Golden Order. The current imperfection of the Golden Order, or instability of ideology, can be blamed upon the fickleness of the gods no better than men. That is a fly in the ointment. In this case, Marica isn't the one being called the bug, but the greater will being the outer gods trying to manipulate their way into the lands between. When Melina was born, Marica was probably still blindly believing in the greater will. She always trusted in the fundamentals of the Golden Order, but eventually she stopped believing in the greater will. This gives Marica a reason to hate the child born to burn the Erd Tree. I think the fact that these mausoleums were created to cradle or embrace the baby suggests that these demigods were young. I believe that Melina is the youngest after Miquella and Melina, which leads me to believe that she grew up in the Haligtree. If Melina was rejected by Marica, she could have been cast out as a child the way Omen are. This could be the reason why there is no artwork of her and people don't know she exists. Usually, you find statues of Melina holding on to Miquella around the Haligtree. You can tell it's them because she's missing an arm and she's holding a child, which can only be Miquella since he doesn't age. But on the promenade, you see a different statue. The statue here depicts a woman holding two children. If Melina grew up in the Haligtree, this could be a young version of Melania before she lost her arm to scarlet rot and she's taking care of Melina and Miquella. If Melina grew up in the Haligtree, she would have been heavily influenced by Miquella, and that could have given her the strength and knowledge to eventually become the Glowmite Queen. You also find the traveler's clothes that Melina wears in the room by Melania's bloom in the Haligtree roots. I think she also has similarities with Melania. Melina's fighting style is similar in the way she glides through the air, which we then see repeated in the Blacknife assassins. If Melania and Miquella raised Melina, she could become a very powerful demigod. Another reason why Marica could have hated Melina is that the Fingers had chosen her to become an Empyrean, if she really is the Glowmite Queen. Why would the Fingers choose a demigod born to burn the Earth Tree to become an Empyrean? Marica probably wouldn't have wanted this child to become a god someday. The Eclipse Shuttle found in Castle Sol uses the Death Flare ability, which sets the lusterless sun ablaze with the Prince of Death's flame. Miquella researched and created magic and weapons. We know because he taught Radagon the Rings of Light and he created Onolite Gold. I believe he created the Eclipse Shuttle with the help of Godwyn. Was Godwyn called the Prince of Death even before he died to destined death, or was he never the Prince of Death while he lived? We know he used lightning magic gathered from the ancient dragons, and Death Lightning was one of those abilities. If Melina spent much of her time with Miquella, she could have learned about this death-inflicting magic. We know that Miquella shared information about incantations with his loved ones. This could be why Miquella feels bad that Godwyn died to destined death rather than a normal death. The golden epitaph says, "Please die a true death." It doesn't say, "Please come back to us," or anything of the sort. It's like he was expecting Godwyn to die, but not the way he did. I believe he knew about the assassination attempt and he let it happen. If this is true, then why would he try to revive him if he was that soulless demigod? I believe he was trying to revive the Glowmite Queen. I think Miquella was trying to create a weapon that could kill a god like Master Hugh, but unfortunately destined death took things too far. If no one knew that demigods could die, Ranni probably took the most powerful thing she could find to make sure the assassination didn't fail. If Godwyn got his hands on a greater rune, he could have succeeded in becoming Elden Lord. According to Enya the Finger Reader, Marica wanted one of the demigods to become Elden Lord. Now Godwyn already had the dragons on his side. If he had become the new lord, he could be stronger than Radagon himself.
Tainted by the strength of their runes, her children warred, but none could become Elden Lord. And so grace was extended to your kind, the Tarnished.
We hear that Melina is burned and bodiless, yet the mausoleum bodies are decapitated. There is no evidence of how she died. The Glowmite Queen is said to have been defeated by Maliketh, but did she die in that battle? We find her Blade of Calling in a small room, inaccessible to most people, by the Forbidden Land Site of Grace. This room looks like some type of prison cell, and it was once guarded by a giant creep. The official's attire is found on a chair by the prison door. Please read the description, he was creepy. If Melina was imprisoned, we can assume she wasn't killed until after Godwyn died. It was as if no one knew that demigods could die, so they were captured. Ranni was able to lead the Blacknife assassins in Melina's absence. Were they that close, or did someone else have power over the assassins? Melina's Blade of Calling didn't turn into a Blacknife because she wasn't part of the ritual. Melina was most likely not present at the Night of Black Knives. Then where was she? Melina could have been imprisoned, then executed shortly after Godwyn was assassinated. Maliketh had destined death on his sword at the time. He could have decapitated these demigods and made them soulless. Decapitation could have been the capital punishment in Leyndell, but unlike Godwyn, Melina has control of her spirit. And like Ranni, she also has a black mark on her eye and keeps it closed. So if destined death kills one person, where does their soul go? Did Melina and Ranni plan on dying to it to continue as spirits? We don't know where the Glowmite Queen operated. Did the skirmish between the Glowmite Queen also include the other soulless demigods? Since the Mausoleum soldiers all wear the eclipse symbol of Castle Sol, were the demigods meeting there? Was that their home? Miquella was known for giving homes to those in need. He protected the Albinurics as well as the misbegottens with the Haligtree. Maybe he gave refuge to his siblings in Castle Sol. According to the veteran's armor set, Commander Niall was the lone survivor who commanded spirits to defend his long-past master, which means that Castle Sol at some point could have been attacked or emptied. Maybe Maliketh attacked Castle Sol, and he probably wasn't alone. What if Morgott was there with him? I include Morgott because he attacked Rykard's manor at some point, so he wasn't afraid of assaulting demigods. We also see an image of Morgott fighting Radahn in the beginning cutscene. If no demigod had ever died up to this point, it could make sense that they were taken prisoners along with the Glowmite Queen. They could have been executed after learning that demigods could die. Then the remaining soldiers of Castle Sol decapitated themselves in order to live in death and watch over their demigods. Except for Niall. According to his armor, this aging veteran could not die, nor did he have anywhere to fade away. Commander Niall isn't a Mausoleum knight, but there is a mausoleum right outside Castle Sol, and after he was left alone, he created an army of known nations. These are the banished knights that you now see inside Castle Sol. Castle Sol is once again a refuge to those who need it. The person who created these mausoleums to cradle or embrace these demigods must have really cared for them. And who but the Lord of Castle Sol himself? Melina's prison is right outside of Morgott's Divine Tower, so he could have kept a close eye on her. He was probably the one to imprison her, and that might be a reason why she attacked Morgott with the player. If you follow the Dung Eater's quest line, he also helps you fight Morgott after you free him. She might just want to create an easier path to the Elden Ring since he killed so many timers trying to become Elden Lord. But she could have also wanted revenge. After all, she doesn't help you fight any other demigod. If she was so desperate to turn the Earth free, she could have at least helped you kill the Fire God. But killing Morgott looks personal. In the Haligtree roofs, you see more of these coffins. There are 7 mausoleums and 10 coffins in the Haligtree. Maybe the mausoleums are meant for the demigods, and the Haligtree coffins were for the soldiers who died in that battle. The rest of the survivors turned into spirits, leaving Castle Sol to Commander Niall. There is one rogue mausoleum soldier outside of the Blacknife catacombs. He seems to be protecting the Blacknife assassin holding the assassin's cerulean dagger. The Blacknife assassins have been speculated to be allied to Melina and Ranni for a long time now, and this further pushes on the idea. Why would a mausoleum soldier safeguard a Blacknife assassin if he had nothing to do with Melina? Some lesser assassins are found in Ordina Liturgical Town when you attempt the trial of lighting the towers. They work together with the Albinurics to protect the Haligtree from being discovered. A common theme in Elden Ring is the use of enemies in specific locations to hint at some type of alliance. The Red Wolf of Radagon is thought to be left there by Radagon to protect Rennala. There is a Blacknife assassin before the players fight with Morgott, and I think she protected Melina as she made her way around Leyndell. I also believe this to be true about the Godskin Apostles. A Godskin noble is found in Rykard's manor as well as one outside of Ranni's Divine Tower, where her body lies. I think these nobles are placed there to protect Melina's allies. We know Rykard and Ranni work together since Ranni gave him the blasphemous claw. The nobles also have a snake tail, and the apostles have a snake body that can stretch out like the snake monsters in Volcano Manor. They've probably been working together for a long time. A Godskin apostle is found in Dominula Windmill Village. Maybe he's protecting the women living there. Were they allies and followers to the Glowmite Queen? In Stormvale Castle, you find a Godskin prayer book inside a wine cellar where only the workers might frequent. We know Gostok hated Godric, and maybe the other servants did too, all the while practicing black flame incantations. I would expect to see black flame incantations in Leyndell as well, but Leyndell was more forcibly protected. They had confessors ready to hunt down and quietly dispose of their enemies. Practicing Godskin incantations in the castle would have been extremely risky, but outside the castle walls, things might have been safer. The peasant class in Elden Ring didn't seem to have many reasons to follow the will, so they could have aided in the internal conspiracy that occurred in Leyndell. Notice how the dancing women don't attack you unless you attack or unless their dog catches aggro. That might be due to coding restrictions. Many commoners throughout the lands between don't attack the player. Are they neutral because they don't trust their masters? Some do attack you. Maybe they were the loyal ones in the bunch. Could some of them have been followers of the Glowmite Queen? Another apostle is guarding the Godslayer's greatsword in the Divine Tower of Caelid. Now, why does Radahn have that? That's a story for another time. There's also a spirit collar snail that creates a Godskin noble and apostle in the spirit collar cave near Castle Soul. These could just be random spirits, but the snail also drops the Godskin swaddling cloth. This is the second time we see the word cradle being used, and this time for newborns. I don't think this is a coincidence. Were they literal newborns or just recently recruited apostles? Were the Godskins demigod children? There is no evidence, but it's something to consider. We also find spirit color snails in the Haligtree. Now, where do we find mausoleums? Are their locations also important? If Miquella created the mausoleums, they're probably in areas where people had faith in the Haligtree. We could consider those people his allies. There's a mausoleum by Raya Lucaria where Rennala is and near Ranni. We see two others in Liurnia, close to each other near the Ould Palace ruins. The ancestral followers, though they stray away from the Erdtree, seem to have faith in the Haligtree since you find Miquella lilies in the area. There is one in the consecrated snowfield outside the opposite derelict church, where the giant albinoric woman sleeps. There is another in the Weeping Peninsula, near Lutal the Headless Spirit Ashes. There are demi-humans and misbegottens in that area. There is the other one by Castle Soul, and lastly, the one in the Deep-Root Depths by Godwyn's corpse. I don't believe that Miquella had ill intentions against Godwyn, but I think he knew of the plans to kill him. I don't think Miquella hated Godwyn or tried to stop the murder. Then again, he could have been in the cocoon on the day of the Black Knives and had no way to stop it. The demigods were planning to war by this point. The Elden Ring was already broken, but when did Miquella order for the mausoleums to be built? It must have been before he put himself in the cocoon. There could have been time for them to be built if the mausoleum demigods were imprisoned. According to this theory, they would have been imprisoned before Godwyn died, and possibly before the Elden Ring was shattered. After Melina dies, she is eventually brought back by Marica as some sort of spirit. She is born again in the Erdtree and is given a purpose.
It takes me back. I was born at the foot of the Erdtree, where Mother gave me my purpose. Though now, everything is lost to me.
With time, she forgets her purpose and remembers again after you take her to Leyndell capital.
The only way to stand before the Elden Ring and become the Elden Lord is to pass the thorns. My purpose serves to aid in that very act.
When Melina talks about Buck, she says,
Your seamster, Bock. I see him crying from time to time. I think he misses his mother. He wants someone to tell him he's beautiful. Does being born of a mother mean one behaves in such a manner?
She says this before entering Langdale and before she remembers who Marica really was. She had no idea how a mother and child should behave with one another. Perhaps it's because Marica never showed affection towards her, and why her personality seems so cold and empty. After she remembers the past, she says,
My purpose was given to me by my mother, but now I act of my own volition. I have set my heart upon the world that I would have, regardless of my mother's designs. I won't allow anyone to speak ill of that, not even you.
She chooses to continue to burn the Erdtree, but not because Marica asked her to. She knows that if the Erdtree isn't burned, whatever happens after is more important than her own life. When she makes this decision, she comes off sounding very defensive, almost like she's contradicting herself in some way. Maybe she's contradicting her old way of thinking before she died. She might also be defensive because she's forced to agree with Marica, a mother who never showed her affection. If Miquella had been trying to find a soul for Melina but failed, then how is Melina alive a second time? Marica was with Melina when she was born a second time inside the Erdtree, but in this case, Melina isn't born into a body. She doesn't have the freedom to roam like the Tarnished are. She seems to only be able to show up in sites of grace and where Torrent carried her, as we see in the beginning of the game. Torrent chose the Tarnished it would stay with, meaning Melina had no choice but to follow them. When the player rejects her, she gives them the option to summon her by grace. Is she a special type of spirit that can only be summoned by grace? Her purpose is so specific to her that normal summoning items can't summon her, almost like Marica is restraining her. Does Marica not trust her? After proving herself to Melina, she needs you to take her to Langdale Royal Capital. But after that, she can roam the capital freely. Is it because Marica is there? Is the capital itself some type of grace? Or could it be because in the Round Table Hold, the largest site of grace lives, encompassing the entire city with its grace, like a veil according to Siostorm on YouTube? Is the Round Table Hold a link between worlds? Torrent and Melina seem to be able to travel between dimensions, like we see Miquella riding Torrent in the DLC. But Melina requires the presence of grace and Torrent lives in his whistle. He seems to die in the Flame of Frenzied Ending because the whistle is burned to ashes. Melina can also travel to Farum Azula. You know she can because she's the one who takes you there. Maybe she also brought the Godskin duo at some point. According to the Remembrance of the Dragon Lord is said to have been Elden Lord in the age before the Erdtree. Placidusac's ruin shoots a golden breath. Maybe Farum Azula continues to hold grace. Was Farum Azula the Round Table Hold of the dragons? It seems to be its own dimension that can be reached by Tarnished. So what is a rune? It's grace that dwells within the inhabitants of the lands between, the lingering trace of gold. When talking to Enya about remembrances, she tells you,
A remembrance of gold has found its way into your possession. Demigods and even the Crater of the Champions are hewn by the Erdtree upon their end into remembrances. They are valuable indeed.
We know that runes have traces of gold, and some are worth more than others. A remembrance is worth so many runes that the Erdtree created a way for them to be remembered. Are runes memories? When leveling you up, Melina says,
Shall I turn your runes to strength? Let my hand rest upon you. For but a moment.
Share them with me. Your thoughts, your ambitions, the principles you would follow.
When you spend runes to level up, you're not only giving her your runes, but you're also giving her a part of yourself. Melina has to touch the player to use her power. The mausoleum demigods extend their arms out, almost expecting to be touched, almost offering something to those who could use it. Even in death, they found a use for their talent. I believe that runes are the same as souls, and the worth of your soul, at least to the greater will. In the Dark Soul games, they were just called souls. I believe that runes equal power, and that's why they can be spent to level up and upgrade your weapons. If a demigod becomes soulless, would they lose their memories? When Melina is revived as a spirit, she seems to forget her past, but after she spends time with the player, she regains them. Is this why you share your thoughts with her through touch? This makes me wonder now. Were the other gods women who were made maidens to be sacrificed? And maybe that's why they have the powers to grant remembrances. Was Melina fighting for those women as well as herself? The statues in the Haligtree are all women, and they seem to be completely covered and wrapped. Was it to show the anonymity of all the women that fought for their lives? Melina seems to have been surrounded by women who supported her, including the Blacknife assassins, the Albinurics, the commoners of Leyndell, Lutel, Melania, and Ranni. Maybe that's why she loathes the frenzied flame. Maybe it's the way they sacrifice and feed eyeballs to those maidens, as well as the end of all life. Like Miquella, Melina wants life and death to continue indiscriminate. There's no evidence of this, and it was just a thought that crossed my mind. On the topic of runes, Numen runes have a very high value. Maybe that's why the Greater Will chose a Numen woman to become a god. Maybe they have more power than the normal folk of the lands between. The Hero's rune says that after heroes were given their honor, they would simply just die. It's like heroes are not meant to grow in power, so not to reach the value of a remembrance. Maybe the Greater Will wants to control who gets power and who doesn't. I noticed the remembrances are only found in demigods. Anything related to the Greater Will, like Astel or Horolu, and ancient creatures that were already alive before the Greater Will entered the lands between, like the Fire Giant, the dragons, and the Regal Ancestor. If Godwyn's soul died, but not his life, his presence could be more like a parasite corrupting everything it touches, without the ability to remember, consider, or feel what it's affecting. One more thing to consider. Every demigod has their own fort of some kind. Miquella has the Haligtree, Rykard has his manor, Radahn has a fort, Ranni has Cario Manor, Melania has the Shaded Castle, Morgott is in Leyndell, Mohg has a palace, and Godwyn had Leyndell or the Eternal Nameless City, which has much of his death influence. Melina could have had Castle Sol as her base. Castle Sol is placed close to the mountain tops of the giants. Was the Glowmate Queen here because she planned to burn the Erdtree herself with black flame, in such a way that no one would need to be sacrificed? The first church of Marica is also placed near the mountain tops of the giants, and that is where Marica gave her speech before attacking the fire giants. The mausoleums have architectural and decorative similarities to that of Nokron and the other eternal cities. The mausoleums have designs on their walls, arches, and floors that glow with a blue hue. I have only seen these decorations underground in the eternal cities. You can see it most clearly in the elevators. Now, other elevators in the lands between don't glow. The architecture in Nokron also has the blue hue, but since it's so dark, you can hardly see the color. You can see it more clearly in the nameless Eternal City, where it's a little bit brighter. The chests in the mausoleums are the same as the Eternal Cities, but the one thing that is unique is the chandelier. Since the mausoleums are outside and not underground, you can see how bright the chandelier is. In the Eternal Cities, they're hard to see, so I brightened this image to compare them. The biggest difference between the chandeliers is the use of chains in the Eternal City ones. The mausoleum ones have more intricate metalwork. These chandeliers were specially designed for the mausoleums, which shows you how much respect they had for these demigods. In Nokron, in the Night's Sacred Grounds, you find a coffin identical to the mausoleum ones, but it doesn't have a corpse or a statue over it. I also recently found another one of these coffins in Raya. This one has another statue of a woman, and over it is a Carian glintstone staff. If these coffins are related to Nokron, is this woman resembling Ranni? She was the Carian princess after all. In the Temple Quarter in Liurnia, you find the Ice Rhine hatchet. It says that it's one of several gifts given by Castle Sol. Near a large temple, you find several Miquella lilies, and in the area you also find St. Trina's lilies. This is a strong link between Ranni and Miquella, which is why I believe that Miquella knew about the assassination. If Miquella had the mausoleums built, I believe Ranni was in agreement. The Blacknife assassins are said to originate from Nokron. They were scions of the Eternal City and of the same stock as Queen Marica. Stock means of the same ancestry or line of descent, and a scion is a descendant of a noble family. They were nobles of the Eternal City and of the same line of descent as Marica. From the definitions I've found, it seems that they were direct descendants of Marica. The Blacknife assassins could be granddaughters or daughters of Queen Marica. Maybe the reason why the mausoleums have so much of Nokron's influence is because those demigods were from there. I said that Melina fights like the Blacknife assassins and that there are similarities to Melina, but after fighting the Nox Swordstress and Monk in Salia, I noticed the Swordstress also fights like Melina. That gives me reason to believe that the demigods who fought alongside Melina were Numen women from Nokron. The Nox Swordstress and maidens cover their eyes with silk. The coffin statues in the Haligtree are also covered with fabric. The envoys seem to also cover their faces and bodies with fabric. The envoys in Leyndell are covered as well. Are they originally from the Haligtree? The envoys have bubble magic, which we also find underground in the Ul Palace ruins and by Clayman. Miquella seems to know a lot about the underground, but so does Ranni. You find the Urumi in Caria Manor, and that sword was wielded by Nightfolk, the people of Nokron. She also knows about the hidden treasure of Nokron. I don't know why the Blacknife assassins killed Iji and attacked Blythe, but with Iji's death, we can see what destined death can do to someone. It seems to burn them unendingly. Maybe this is why Melina is burned and bodiless. Maybe she was decapitated with the Black Blade, but destined death burned her body. I think the ancestral followers built the walking islands, and the people of Nokron built the mausoleums and their decorations. We see ancestral followers in Nokron, Liurnia in the Old Palace, but also in the consecrated snowfield. The only way to get there is through Mohg's portal or with the Haligtree medallion. I think every creature in the consecrated snowfield is an ally of Miquella, even the annoying NPCs that invade the player. For now, this is all I have, so I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you on the next one. Share them with me. Your thoughts, your ambitions, the principles you would hold. Shut up. The envoys in line. Onyx, shut up! The Onyx.